Hello and welcome to another episode of Between the Covers. If you're watching for the first time, my name is Daniela Beckner. I am an author, book journey mentor, founder of a company called Conscious Dreams Publishing. We work with authors from all over the world to help them to get their powerful messages and stories out there in the form of books. On the bookshelf behind me are some of the 350 plus books that we have published over the last 9 years. I'm absolutely passionate about providing a platform for unseen, unheard authors so they can have their voices heard and stories shared, so they can educate, inspire and empower for generations to come. If you're wondering what is this show all about and why is it called Between the Covers, this show is about getting up close and personal with authors and find out what goes on between the covers of creating a book. It's easy to look at a book, look at how beautiful this book is, and enjoy it for the read. But often we don't understand the whole journey and the process of putting it together, the blood, sweat and tears that goes on behind creating the book. So let me introduce my awesome and amazing guest. So there you go. So what I forgot to say is, if you find this content of worth and value, how can you not? Please do share this out. Send your followers over here. This is also a very interactive show as well. So if you have any questions, please do share those questions and we will answer them live. So who do I have? I have been working with the amazing Della Judd and her aunt Helen Allinson, who have worked together to create this book, Raids and RAF Days, first-hand memories of the Blitz, the war and its aftermath. Real life diaries written by Della's grandfather, John Teague, who was in the RAF, was an RAF soldier from age 17. Absolutely. Hello, Zila. Absolutely incredible book with real life photos, real life diaries and letters written from his parents back home. So let's please do tap the screen, show us some love. I want to see those fire emojis going up for Della Judd. She is a podcaster and author and executive coach, co-author alongside historian Helen Allinson, Air Raids and RAF Days, which launches tomorrow to commemorate the 80th anniversary of VE Day. Hello, Della. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Excellent. I can see the book in the background. How do you feel to finally have this book here? I mean, all of these letters and diaries compiled together coming out tomorrow.
It's really exciting. I have to say, the book is big, and so it really sort of hits home how much of the diaries there are, how many letters. When you see it sort of land, and it's quite a chunky thing. So yeah, we're delighted with it, and to see it in person. A big box of books arrived today as well, so that was really cool getting that in my hands.
Brilliant. So what inspired you to turn John Teague's diaries and letters into a published memoir?
Well, I think it's one of those things. In the family, we always knew that they existed. My granddad had written these diaries from 1938 to 1946, and he had then meticulously kind of gone back over them over various different times of his life. He then typed everything up. He actually threw the originals away, which is a bit of a shame. But he talked about them over time. And then for his 90th birthday, the family, and Helen in particular, Helen gets all the credit for doing all of the transcribing and working through all the computer documents of what we had and transcribing all the letters. But we decided that we would create a copy of the diaries for him for his 90th birthday. And it was just a few copies for the family members. And John didn't really want to, I think he was a little bit afraid that he would get told off for some of the things that he'd put in the diary. He talks of going off sometimes without a pass, and he really was desperate to get home sometimes. There's a few talks about different superiors who'd got maybe the odd STD, and he was a bit worried about that sort of thing getting out into public domain. So Yeah. He spilled the tea for sure, and it was one of those things that we said, okay, that's fine. We did it for the family. He actually lived until he was 100, and you know he talked very fondly and very often about these years. And then after he died, a couple of years ago, my aunt also found a whole series of letters that he had kept.
Can we see those actually up to the screen? I mean, I think that's absolutely, it's so precious. I mean, how many people have real life letters from that period?
Well, we've got a bunch of them. I mean, that one that I just held up there actually is talking about VE Day. You know, we had these letters, and Helen and I were talking about the fact that it was this, you know, special document, a special period of time a lot of people are interested in, and he had a kind of unique view. He was in London during the Blitz, and then he was in Europe as part of the RAF, and we had the opposite side of the story with his life on the home front with his family in London being bombed out. So yeah, I suppose that was really where we got to. We had this whole archive of information, and we just felt that it needed to be shared more widely, and that his story, and I think we've seen a lot of that in the VE Day coverage over the last week or so, that the stories are precious. There's not many people left. There's not very many people that have this kind of archive, and so we felt very much that we wanted it to be shared.
I mean, I think that's brilliant. I would like to know, you know, there's one thing having those diaries and, you know, throwing them away, and also having those letters. How did he respond when he actually saw that initial book for your family members? How did he feel seeing that in the sort of published format?
I think he was delighted, actually, because it's one of those things. I think when it's something that's your own, I think you maybe think, oh, it's just this old thing, you know, it's just something I did. And I think when he saw perhaps how his great grandchildren, my brother's children, reacted when they sort of saw it, that they could see it was a proper archive, and they could sort of picture the younger John. I think maybe he sort of saw that there was a bit more importance in it. And then as he aged, I think it's a thing when people get older, they often remember the past a little bit more vividly. So as he aged, he talked a lot more about some of his time in the RAF and some of the pictures that he had and the photographs and things. So yeah, I think maybe it occurred to him that it was a bit more important than perhaps he realised.
And so how did it feel for you, you know, both yourself actually and your Aunt Helen, to actually delve into his personal material? And would you ever imagine it being something that would have been shared with the world?
No, and I think it's only in the last few months when we knew that it was an important set of documents. We knew that it was an important time. But it's when I've been talking to other people as we near the launch day tomorrow, I've realised how few people have this sort of stuff. And because we're a family of diarists and writers, my grandmother wrote her memoirs as well. I've got diary entries from my great grandmother, and we just sort of always had this. I think that when I've started to talk to other people, I've realised that not many people have this stuff. So whilst we probably took it a little bit for granted, when I've shown people some of the photographs we've got and the letters and as a collection, I think then I think we've appreciated it more. And for Helen, I know that that's also the case. And because, you know, she had a very close relationship with her father, and they would have talked often, went through some of the documents and things, certainly as he got older. So again, it's that sort of thing. Oh, well, we've just always had this in the family. So I think for both of us, getting it into print and seeing it in, you know, reality, yeah, it sort of hits home, you know, how much he'd written and what there is.
And it's very, very specific. It's you can really get a sense of what it was like to be there, or like you said, on both sides, I think, as well. Before I kind of crack into other questions, you've had quite a bit of press interest with this, obviously, with VE I can't say it.
VE Day.
I can't say that. VE Day coming up tomorrow. Can you tell us a little bit about some of that interest, especially with who do you think you are?
Yeah, I mean, I deliberately picked the VE Day date. I thought it would be of, it's good interest. 80th anniversary, obviously tomorrow, and I've been really surprised actually at how much interest we had. We have had quite a bit of interest. So Who Do You Think You Are, the TV program, has got a sister magazine, the Who Do You Think You Are magazine, and I wrote to them and sort of explained some of the diary entries we had for VE Day, and it combines with the campaign that the government and the Imperial War Museum have been running over the last few months, called Letters from Home, and they were interested in any people out there who'd got letters. So I'd written specifically about this campaign, and that we had a letter from mentioning VE Day itself, and we got a full page of coverage and a star letter in the Who Do You Think You Are magazine, which I was really pleased with. We also got in touch again on the back of that Letters from Home campaign. The BBC were looking for people who had stories, so we got in touch with them and we did an interview with them. We're hoping that that's going to go out tomorrow. It was done with BBC Three Counties Radio. We think it will be shared with BBC London, which is obviously where my granddad was at the time, and also BBC Radio Kent, which is where my Aunt Helen is now living. And that was really cool actually, because I actually asked my son if he wouldn't mind sort of hanging around while the journalist was there to take a few pictures of me. And I did say to him, you never know, she might ask you, because he's the same age as my granddad was during the Blitz.
Right, of course.
And I said, she might ask if you'll read something out. And of course, and I hadn't set it up, I honestly swear. But she saw him and he was interested. So actually the interview tomorrow is me reading one of the letters, but also my son, John's great-grandson, reading the diary entries from VE Day. So that's cool.
That is an absolutely fantastic idea. I saw one of your posts comparing, yourself at 17, and I can certainly think about myself at 17. I can even fathom, being sent off to first of all going through a war, at age 16, and then being part of the RAF at 17. Life completely changed.
At 17, he had two sort of phases to his war, because he was so young at the beginning. He was in London during the Blitz in 1940, and he was tasked to be part of the Civil Defence Organisation. And initially that was sort of a bit of fire watching, watching bombs rain down and sort of dodge them. And he talks a bit about dodging, going into shop doorways and dodging the bombs. But then later he was tasked with requisitioning houses, so houses that weren't being used, perhaps people had gone to their country home or just left. He had to go around and get those houses, he had to go with like a bodyguard, but another older person perhaps, and tap the thing on the door that says we're taking control of the house. And then he would be in rehoming centres, so where people were bombed out overnight, he would be having to rehome families. And he was doing that when he was 17 and 18. And I think in that Facebook post that I put up, you saw what I was doing when I was 17, 18, and that was sort of caroring around Swindon town centre, having far too much to drink and a lot of fun with my student friends. With enormous hair, as was the time, in the 80s there. But I can't imagine, my son's 20 now, he's at university. I can't imagine him, having to deal with that level of seriousness. And then after he'd done that, he then went into the RAF. Because of his eyesight, he was never flying planes, but he was a wireless operator mechanic, and he was servicing a lot of planes. And in fact, this is one of the pictures that's the cover of the book. It's a Spitfire. I did write down what it says. Oh, it says on the back, Spitfire Mark II from 1944. And then he also took lots of other pictures of planes. So this was a Mosquito. And I was talking to my dad earlier. I don't think he was supposed to have a camera with him. I don't think he was supposed to have taking pictures of anything, and yet we've got this album of different planes. There's a crashed German plane he's taken a picture of, and then at the very end of the album we've got a picture of he ends up in Hamburg in 1946, which has been completely ruined by the Allied bombs, and there's nothing left of Hamburg. So he sort of took quite a lot of different pictures, and he's put them all in an album and kept them. So it's quite precious memories for him, I think.
It's all like creates such a legacy, but also this sense of remembrance of that this happened. People living in Deptford now, I was reading it and I recognize all of the places. And you look at these places through different lenses of what was happening at the time. I just wanted to say hello to the people who are watching. Zila says beautiful. Thank you for about the book there. Cheryl Ann Andrews says hello. She gives you some stars. Amazing, fantastic. Again, if you're watching, please do throw up some questions. I'm speaking with the awesome and amazing Della Judd, the granddaughter of John Teague. She, along with her aunt Helen Allinson, have compiled real life diary he's written during the war, air raids and RAF days, first-hand memories of the Blitz, the war and its aftermath, alongside letters from his parents back home. We've got a question. Mr. Starr, what was the opinion? What was his opinion of the war? That's an interesting question.
Well, I think he wanted peace, and he agreed that that war was necessary. I think that it's interesting because although he's obviously doing his bit, as a lot of Londoners did, they just sort of got on with it, and he went where he was told. Later on, you sort of see the sense of frustration. He really wanted to just get on with his own life. So yes, he agreed with the bigger picture of what was necessary. But at the age of 16 and 17, he was really keen to carry on his education. He wanted to be a librarian, and he actually carried on studying all the way through the war. And in fact, in parts of the book when he was in Europe, he was doing like a open university course in librarianship, and he was doing that in the huts, wiring up his own lights so that he could see, to do his studies. And as we get towards the end of the war, there's a real sense of frustration. Well, actually, the end of this book goes up to 1946 when he came home. So he didn't come home. VE Day, I think a lot of people think, well, that was it, the end of the war. He didn't come home for 18 months, nearly 2 years later, because he was helping as part of the kind of cleanup operation, moving things around, still servicing all the planes that were going back and forth. So you actually get this sense of frustration. I did mark this bit a bit earlier. He said he reported in for release, so he thought he was going home. It was a mistake. I'll kill Taffy Davis, who told me I was listed. Bad head cold, whiskey. Had to work in pissing rain, study evening, more whiskey. And at the start of the book, you think, oh, he's a really polite young lad. At the end, after 6 years of this, he's just like, just get me home. It's pouring with rain. I thought I was going home, and I've still got to stay here. So, and actually drinks more and more whiskey towards the end. And for my God, he's such a,
what's his writing like?
He used to have a sherry, at Christmas, and the odd little bit of drink, but he wasn't a heavy, hard drinker. So I think it just sort of shows the level of frustration. He just wanted to get home, and at that point, his father was not very well. So his father had stomach cancer, and we kind of follow that story throughout the letters as well that we get from his home.
I think you kind of just hit that home, because he was an ordinary everyday boy, 17 years old. That's 6 years of really important years where you're finding yourself, finding out what you like, what you don't like, experiencing life, and to have to be somewhere that you don't particularly want to be after 6 years. I think that really reflects itself in the diary. Was there anything that particularly surprised you about his experiences during the Blitz or his life in the RAF? Apart from drinking whiskey.
Well, yeah, there was that, but I think it's just the frequency of the bombing. I mean, you know, I've watched lots of TV programs about the Blitz. He's quite meticulous in that he notes down what shifts he's on, and then he notes down when the air raid warnings are. And so, you know, just this date is, you know, not air raid warnings 9:15 to 9:50, 1 o'clock in the afternoon till 2 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night till 11 o'clock. And so just going on and on and on. And then he talks about this mass air attack on the Surrey docks, the Old Kent Road gasworks, all down the south of the river ablaze. And he said, I had to go, the sirens went off again. 10 minutes later, screaming bombs were dropping around Havel Street just after I passed down it walking home. And the fire illuminated all of London. The raid continued until 5 o'clock in the morning. I reached home at 2 a.m. after many dives into doorways and lying down in the roadway once or twice. I had to divert around the larger incidents and areas with unexploded bombs as the police would not let me through. And then he just puts, yesterday 400 were killed in South London and there were 1,300 serious injuries. And I think you just sort of imagine him just as a young lad. I mean, at this point he was 1940, so he was only 18. And what surprises me is just how vivid it feels that he's noting down all the times. He's dodging through different areas. The bombs are obviously everywhere. He's trying to get home the quickest route. Police are saying, no, you can't get through. And, you know, he has to get up the next morning and go and do another shift. And so it sort of, I don't know, my working days where I thought, oh, I can't bother to go in today. And you just sort of, you do see that sense, that Blitz spirit, the keep calm and carry on is just all the way through that. And I think it really brought it to life, how many bombs and how much he was right in the middle of it.
And then having to, like you said, to keep going, no matter what. I was going to ask you if there's anything that particularly struck you on a personal level, but I guess that you've answered that bit. Is there anything in there that was there anything in there that kind of showed the shift between him, his experiences during the Blitz, and then his time in the RAF, and obviously not being able to become a pilot because of his eyesight? So was there a shift there in his writing?
I think he would quite like to have been a pilot. He does talk about having to sign up, and he hopes that they're not going to refuse him on eyesight. And I think there's definitely a sense that he wants to go and he wants to be part of it. So in answer to the question that somebody asked before, what was his thinking around it? He wanted to serve and he wanted to go. He got frustrated with some of the bureaucracy. I mean, the first form that he got through had him down as age 39, and he writes, no wonder I haven't been bloody called up, they think I'm too old. It's like, it's good to see that nothing's changed with paperwork. But, so he sends it back, he gets it corrected, and then he goes. And I think the experience around Europe, he was in lots of different places, and he was in the UK doing like a lot of training, doing all his wireless training. He had to get specialist training to do all the wireless mechanic stuff. And then when he was in Europe, he was just part of that shift with planes coming in, having to service them and then go out. I suppose the difference is that I think you sense that he becomes much more of the man when he's in London. He's still at home. Yes, he's missing bombs and diving in doorways, but he's sort of a frustrated young lad who's been told what to do, and he doesn't particularly like it. In the RAF, you sort of get that sense. He was taught to drive by a WAF, a woman Air Force. I think he had about 2 hours training. He never got any more driving instructing, by the way, and he kept driving till he was about 90. Wow. So he had to grow up quite quickly, I think. And so you sort of get that sense of him having to do that quite fast. And then later on, you can kind of also tell when other new people arrive. so some of the new recruits, and he then becomes the person who sort of tells them, well, this is how you do this, or this is how we, you know, get around that problem, or this is where the whiskey is, or, you know, whatever. He's sort of the mature one, only sort of 23 years old, but he's been out there a few years, so you sort of sense that he's growing up, and really, you know, that frustration of this is affecting, especially once the war is over, and he knows the war's over, but he's still stuck out there. He hasn't been demobbed, so the frustration levels just get a little bit harder, really. Higher.
I was going to ask a question, but it's another interesting question here. So my question I was going to ask before was, what do you think got him through? And then we've got Red Oxtail asking, how much did he speak to you about this time in his life? Is the diary that only record?
Right. So the how did he get through question to start with, I asked my aunt this actually, because I wondered whether he, you know, was he particularly religious? He wasn't. When I knew him, he was a Quaker after he married my grandmother, which are sort of pacifist kind of beliefs, and he wasn't particularly, I think it was Methodist family, and it wasn't religion, but I think my aunt just said, you know, sheer bloody mindedness to just get on with it and get on with his life after the war. So it was a kind of just got to get through this, going to keep doing my education, keep passing the exams, and then I'll be able to go and do what I want. So I think that was kind of what got him through, just that sense of I will complete.
Oh, just off the back of what you've just said here, we've got David Allinson on. He says he was a gloriously driven, willful, even stubborn character right to the end of his life.
Yeah, so David, hello David. David's my cousin. So David is Helen's son. So you're absolutely right. He was stubborn. And I think it kept him alive that long, to be fair. And he obviously had that sort of sense of perhaps 9 lives with diving into doorways, because he was right there at the time. But yeah, he really had that kind of determination to succeed in everything that he did. So yeah, and then the other question you had was, did he talk to us much, and was the diary the only record? I think he had spoken to us a bit, and certainly as he got older, he would often recollect different stories that were in the diary, and when he typed things up, he had it helped him remember, I think. So yes, he did talk a bit about it. The thing I think that comes out in the book, though, is obviously he wrote down this detail at the time. You know, there's no way that anyone would remember the air raids at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3:10, 5. How many he writes often how many people he rehoused as well. So he writes, you know, we rehoused 50 people, we 80 people the next night, 200 the next night. So what I think we've got with the diaries is the real detail. So
yeah,
with anything you can kind of tell a story and it gets a bit either embellished or you forget the details. In this, we've got real detail about you know, the what and the when and the streets that he was in, and you know what actually happened. And what he did in later life was he actually went back to the archives. So he was a historian as well. He liked all the details, so he used to go to the London archives and the local archives in places like Lewisham and Deptford, and he would look at the records and, you know, mirror up his writing of there was a bomb in this place, and he would mirror that up with the London bomb damage maps and the records that were in the county archives, and sort of check that what he'd written, because a lot of it wasn't in the press at the time, a lot of it would have been suppressed, so if you were there you knew, but it wasn't kind of more widely talked about. So yes, in answer to the question, he did talk. I wasn't aware of the letters, and I'm not sure if Helen was aware of the letters until after he died, so I think that was more of a after his death discovery. And then what we were able to do is kind of piece together the diary entry with the letter. What we've done is what Helen's done is slot them in. Yes, so the letters are in the right order of when the entries are. It's interesting because sometimes they're crossing purposes or crossing time because the letter is late. So he'll say, you know, have you got my letter, or thank you for the food parcel that you sent, and then, you know, see in the letter, hope you got the food parcel, or whatever. And yeah, so you can kind of see, and later on when his father is unwell, there's quite a lot of concern from John about his father, but his father, Sidney, is really trying to downplay how unwell he is. And I'm all right now, son, and you don't have to worry about me. And sort of trying to reassure him, because he's obviously miles away in Europe, that he's okay, when he really he wasn't. But that kind of comes through in the letters as well.
Thank you for sharing that. So let's talk a bit about the writing and the publishing process now. I mean, putting this together, yourself and your aunt, would have been a massive, mammoth task. I mean, I take my hat off to you, because this is not, it's not just a few letters. It's not just a few, you know, bits of diary here and there. It's huge. How did you divide the roles in regards to like putting it together?
So Helen did all of the compiling to start with. So we had the document from my granddad, who he'd written it all up on the computer, so we had to get that up to scratch. And Helen then did all the transcribed for the letters, which I have to say, having tried to read, you have to get into the kind of the flow of the handwriting, because they're written in you know, nice script, so you have to kind of get into that. So Helen did all of those and inserted them all in, and then I guess I took more of an editing role. So I did an initial kind of pass through and edit into, you know, they use different terms all the way through the letters in terms of the money. You know, sometimes it's written out longhand 4 shillings, and to others it's like you know, 4 and a dash. And so trying to get consistency of terms. And then obviously I've been working with you, Danielle, about you know, trying to get the typesetting, the editing, and the cover design and all of that. So we've kind of done a 2-half process. Helen's been doing the front, collating it all, and then I've been working with you guys for getting it into an actual book.
But you've been doing the fun bit. The design.
Yeah.
I mean, that I just can't imagine. That's just the sheer amount of letters and diaries, compiling them all together. I think you both brought so much to the whole project in your own ways. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been nice working together on it.
So thinking about the cover and the design, I mean, I just love the colours. Yeah. Talk us through, because I know that you definitely wanted this picture for the front cover, and we've got your granddad on the back as well. Talk us through your vision of the actual design.
Well, it's a tricky one, a cover design, isn't it? We had a number of different thoughts on it, you know, but I think that because we had these pictures, you know, these original pictures that belong to us in the family, we thought it would be really nice to use one of those, because you can get more of a graphic illustration kind of style, which I did toy with the idea of doing. Partly that takes a bit of time, I think, and you need sort of separate designers. I'm not an artist or whatever, but yeah, we like that. We wanted it to be more of the blue, like an RAF blue. And what we did was I used Facebook and LinkedIn actually to put a couple of different cover design ideas up and ask for people's opinion. So we had one where it didn't have this brown frame, and this sort of, it looks like it's been stuck on a wall, and one without it like that. And we tried with different fonts and things, and we asked for people's opinions. And I think that was really a great, firstly, it's good publicity, because you know, people like to be involved. in the process of either a book title or a book cover. But also it does give you a genuine bit of feedback as to say whether people like the sort of old fashioned style. And most people, I would say the vast majority of people, chose this cover title, cover page. Yeah, well, it was me and Helen's favourite. You are running a bit of a risk when you put something up like this and they go, oh, no, I don't like it. So, but we knew that we all liked it, and we were really pleased that, you know, everybody else, the majority of people, not everybody voted for it, but the majority of people said that they liked that style. And then we went with the same sort of note structure on the back with the picture of my granddad in his uniform as the back page, and the sort of the sticky tape, which I kind of think represents how it might have been, you know, in his digs
at the time.
At the time, you know, stick a family photo up on the wall and it reminds you of home, kind of thing. So that's kind of what we were going for.
Yeah, I honestly love the cover. Shout out to our designer, Emily's World of Designs. Love the colour. I mean, like you said, we were toying with the idea of using a stock cover image of the Blitz. If anyone manages to find any, please let us know, because there's not much out there. No. But I think you've got the real life, you know, with the picture with the Spitfire plane.
Yes.
All of it kind of is in theme with the authenticity of the book, and I think that's what carries it through, you know.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it is him, and yes, we could have used a stock image, but as you say, some of the stock images that are out there are, because it's London in ruins, it's really difficult to sort of get that image on a book, because it just looks like, you know, a pile of bricks, which of course that is what it is. And we didn't have any of our own pictures. Some of the books, the pictures in the book, we've had with permission from Lewisham Archive, the Southwark Archive, so they've been reproduced, but even those are not really clear enough that you would have wanted to use for a title. So actually, I think after all that sort of debate about what we do and what we wanted to do, having the picture with him in his uniform and the plane, I think it's a, you know, the right decision at the end. I'm really pleased with it.
Nice, iconic. So what message do you hope younger generations who maybe know a bit about the war but not really how it really was, what do you want them to take away from John's story?
Well, I like to think that because it shows the story of someone who was young at the time, I think there's some messages in here about the importance of education, and no matter what the circumstances, you can keep going, and you can keep going with your education no matter where you are. So I think there's that. I think there's a discipline part of that. I think he knew what he wanted to do. He sort of set his cap at what he wanted to be, and he was determined to get it. I suppose the other thing, I always think this is true of any kind of work situation now, but if you can be adaptable, I think it's just as important now as it was then. You know, with so much changing in the workplace and in you know, technology and things, you can turn up to work one year and then the next year it's completely different. So I think what John shows is that you have to be adaptable. You know, he reported to Deptford Town Hall and Camberwell Town Hall for service. He didn't know at all what he was going to do, and he just had to turn his hand to it. And one day he's asked to do this, next day he's asked to do requisitioning houses, next day he's asked to go and report somewhere else, and the next day shift pattern changes. And there's a kind of level of adaptability that I think even in, you know, we're not in that sort of situation, but we are in a very ever-changing world. Exactly. And when I was in my corporate job, the people who could show adaptability and resilience, and, you know, could say, oh, okay, we're going to change that computer system, you know, or we're going to change that process, or the customer wants this now. Those people who could be adaptable to change, I think, are the ones that go far. And I think he really showed that here. So I suppose the other message is from, you know, just publishing this at all, is that we shouldn't forget what that generation did. And I think, obviously, having seen some of the VE Day coverage, there's hardly anybody left. And those people who were left were kind of very small children. at the time. And so there's that, I think that the younger generations now still need to be aware of that sacrifice and aware of what happened in that situation. Unfortunately, there's still wars going on and political battles and things. So I think it's a good reminder of, how things can go.
Brilliant, thank you. So you spoke about VE Day. That's really I love that answer. You spoke about VE Day. It often celebrates the military achievements. How do you think air raids and RAF days shifts that perspective a little bit? Because it wasn't just those on the military, the front line.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of books that I see about World War I and World War II, that they seem to come from the officer class and the seniors and the high ups and maybe the politicians, and those people are probably destined for a position in the army or the Air Force or the Navy, or they were going to be politicians. And I think this is very different because this is just an ordinary boy who, he went to grammar school, he got a scholarship, and he had help from his Aunt Em, who helped him get there. We paid for books and things like that. He wanted to be a librarian. He had no real ambition to be an officer, or he didn't come from a military family. Right. So I think what this illustrates is, there were millions of people like him who just got called up or got told they had to go and do their bit, men and women, people who went and did voluntary service or nursing or farm girls and all that kind of thing. And actually that's the sort of story, isn't it? There's millions of those ordinary people who were at the front lines or behind the lines servicing planes or, making the tea. They're the people who were doing all of that. But I don't know that you hear so much about those. No. Because a lot of the books and people who kept all the records were perhaps a little bit more senior. One of the books that me and there's a series of books that my aunt and I both really like reading is it's about a project called the Mass Observation Project. And that was a project that was set up in about 1936, I think, 37. And it asked for ordinary people to record their observations of what was going on in and around the country. Every area of the country was covered, and it would ask for people to note down, what did you hear on the bus today, or what's the view on pricing, or what's the view on rationing, and those are all sent in centrally. And I think that archive gives a real sense of what ordinary people thought, really thought, because they were all anonymous. And you could say what you really thought without being judged by your neighbours or your family or your friends. And I think there's a little bit of this here because, this is an ordinary person writing down every day how he really felt. And sometimes he wrote, when is this bloody war going to end? And I'm bored of it and I want to go home. And it isn't sort of a military man's bravado of I'm an officer and this is what we should do. So.
And I think, like we said before, that's the beauty of the book. An everyday, ordinary young man, just becoming a man at 17, entering manhood, going into, the RAF, going through war. I mean, it's incredible. How do you feel like your grandfather would feel seeing, this book now, if he was able to see it and read it and see how it was received by others?
He would probably say, what a load of fuss.
Sounds great.
Yeah, he probably would. He'd probably think, God, is anyone going to read this? I think he would be proud, really, because, one of the things he set up, he's a lover of books, and he was, as I say, he was a librarian. He became head librarian at City University Library, and he set up St John Books, which is our kind of family local history publishing company. So he had a love of books, and he had a love of a story, and also the memoirs and the history. And he actually helped. This is my nan's memoirs, which is his wife. So he helped publish that, and he knew how important that was as well. So I actually think initially he'd say what a load of fuss, But I think really he'd probably say, yeah, that's a really thing to be proud of, and yeah, I think he would be pleased.
Wouldn't it be great to have this in all libraries? So if you are connected with your local library, or if you are a librarian, or if you just even have a bookstore, please do get in contact with Della and get this book in your library or bookstore. We have another message here from Cheryl. She's saying, congratulations, wishing you the best. All the best for tomorrow. Yes, this book is released tomorrow to commemorate the 80th anniversary of VE Day. Hopefully you'll be seeing Della's interview, the BBC interview, and let's see what else happens tomorrow. I'm excited for your journey. We've got some more here. Claire says, a wonderful family legacy and amazing to hear the detail recorded in John's diaries. Thank you so much for your hard work compiling this, and I'm very much looking forward to receiving my copy. Fantastic. If you have been watching, please do share this out. Let people know about this book. Get a copy for yourself. This is preserving a slice of history here. And like we said, history that can be forgotten because it's not a well-known soldier. It's an everyday person, everyday young man who went into the RAF, recorded in meticulous detail everything that happened, and then you've got the caveat of the letters from the parents as well, which is another story in itself. I just want to throw up so we worked alongside Della. She's published under her own imprint, St John Books. Is it stjohnbooks.com?
.co.uk.
Perfect. Where can people get a copy of the book, and how can they connect with you?
So the book is available on Amazon. It's available for pre-order now, and it will be live tomorrow, but you can get it on paperback and Kindle editions. And I think if you order the Kindle today, it will just be straight downloaded onto your device tomorrow. If you want to connect with me, I am on Facebook and I'm on LinkedIn. There aren't many Della Judds, so if you just put in Della Judd, I'm sure you'll find me. And LinkedIn is also St John Books. You can see the web address there. There is a link to the Amazon link on that page as well. And on St John Books, there's a few copies left of my grandmother's memoirs, A London Life. I have actually, for VE Day, I did record. My grandmother wrote a few paragraphs about VE Day in that book, and I have recorded those, and they are on my Facebook page as an audio file. So if people want to hear her account, she was actually in Trafalgar Square on VE Day, on the night of VE Day, which is kind of cool. So they're on my Facebook page and LinkedIn as well, if anyone wants to listen to those.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Can I just throw in as well, it's available across all retailers worldwide. So yes, it's on Amazon, but it'll also be on Waterstones online, Barnes and Noble, all of those. Please do go down to your local Waterstones or your local bookshop. They have it online, but this is a little trick here I'm going to throw in. If you get enough people to go into your local Waterstones and request the same book over and over again, they will then order in a few for their actual bricks and mortar bookshop. So try that trick. It's something that needs to be in the shops and it needs to be in the libraries. The more people who read about this and who get to understand what it was really like, you're part of preserving a legacy and a real life story of era that could easily be forgotten if we don't keep it going. So
yeah, thank you, Danny.
No problem. Della, any final words from you?
No, I mean, thank you, Danny. It's been great to work with you, and I'm really excited for tomorrow. I think that it's been a real journey. I've loved working with my aunt, and even my son's been helping with the website and things like that. So it's been a real labour of love from the family. I've got the books have arrived. I can start giving them out to a couple of family members as well. So it's just been a really nice thing, and all roads have been leading to tomorrow, so I'm kind of excited to get there and see what happens with some of the press coverage that we've hopefully got, and see where it goes. Exciting.
Me too. I'll be up early. So please do, if you see any posts from Della or myself, you can see the links up there or down there, depending where you're watching. Please do share them out, because we all support each other as a community so we can get out further and further. Thank you so much. I feel like I'm sinking as I'm talking about my chest. There we go. So I want to thank Della for coming on, and also Allinson, who I think has a radio interview tomorrow as well. So of course we'll share everything that's happening. It's been fantastic to work with both of you, and this is the beginning. Although we've completed the publishing process, this is just the beginning of a brand new journey, which I'm really proud and happy to be part of, and to see you fly with this book. Please do join us next Thursday, 7 p.m. GMT, 2 p.m. EST, where I'll be interviewing the awesome and amazing Ismwani Lillian, who has written a book called Heartbeat of Hope, A Mother's Journey Through Resilience, Medicine and Hope. So join us on Thursday, 7 p.m. GMT, 2 p.m. EST. It's been fantastic having you all on. Thank you for all your fantastic questions and for your interaction. Again, please support Della and Helen with their book, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Bye.